You've all definitely heard of the new coronavirus by now, if not infected yourself. What started off as a local disease in China has now turned to a global pandemic, causing massive lockdowns all around the world. Up until now, 230 countries and 2 conveyances have been infected by the virus, which has led to around 4,800,000 cases and approximately 300,000 victims. Aside from the medical alerts, it is said that the virus will have severe negative impact on global economy, especially post-corona. As yet, economies are collapsing, and the unemployment rate in the US alone has soared to 40.7%, and we're nowhere near done with the virus yet. If you thought the tragedy ends here, you're very wrong. We could actually go for days and days counting all the tragic events that are going on right now. And since the media has focused all the spotlights on the coronavirus, you might not even have heard of some of these tragedies. In Afghanistan, 60 people died due to the recent attacks. Refugee camps are an absolute mess right now, and some refugees are even stuck behind the borders without proper facilities to self-isolate or practice social distancing. The so-called solved matter of Brexit, well, it's not solved yet, and apparently has had very little progress in trade talks, and is actually in danger of becoming a no-deal Brexit, along with other catastrophes that you've probably heard of, such as the climate change, conflicts in the Middle East, and terrorism. So clearly, we're living in a world that's in a constant crisis mode, even without the coronavirus. The government, states, and multinational organizations haven't been able to handle these issues very well, and the private sector seems to be about powerless. So the question that occurs here is that how can we contribute to the mitigation and management of this crisis, and how can we speak up in a way that our voices get heard? In order to answer to this question, we're going to set a simplified version to society's structures. There's usually a public sector, which is basically the government and its branches. Then there's the private sector, which is the market and is also known as the economic sector. Then there's the civil sector, also known as the civil society, which is the sector that we're going to focus on. The term civil society is frequently used in media and by politicians, but if you were to stop and ask a casual passerby what is meant by civil society, it is unlikely that many people could give an accurate answer. And that's because the term has faced major modifications throughout history. Currently, the term is associated with the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe. During the 1980s, it came to have a very specific meaning referring to self-organized groups or organizations capable of preserving an autonomous public sphere. So this is probably the sector that is going to bring the voices of the community, of the residents that the governments are trying to serve into conversations and make them get heard. The more democratic a country is, the more dense its civil society's networks become. Because in order to form a powerful, fully functioning civil society, laws that could hold the government accountable for its action are required. In other words, civil societies need to be able to monitor government's actions and respond to them. Lacking these sort of laws, accompanied with challenges regarding freedom of speech, are the main reasons why civil societies in some areas are weaker and less efficient than others. Now let's go back to the case of coronavirus once more to see how these organizations actually operate in times of crisis. In the age when social distancing is demanded, civil societies might be facing some tough times, but in the meantime, they're starting to adapt to the situation and modify. They currently need to advocate for effective responses by the government, and they need to be spreading awareness on the matter of coronavirus to fight the running misinformation. Also, in some areas, even border closure was a result of civil society-backed demonstrations and demands. Also, non-government organizations, which are basically an important part of the civil sector, have held countless fundraisers and have made major donations to coronavirus-related trials and organizations such as the WHO. The Bill Gates Foundation has donated an estimated $100 million to aiming to find home testing kits for the disease. One of the key ways to do so would be to cooperate with civil society organizations. On one hand, democracy boosts civil society, and civil society boosts democratization. On the other hand, civil societies are facing an increase in digital and tech needs, and if we don't support those needs, we might be facing the danger of losing their functional capacity. Also, another thing that we can do is to educate people, especially young people, starting from universities and schools, since young people are the ones who are going to create tomorrow. We can either choose to go around and shout in our normal voice and risk not getting heard, or we could speak up in our normal voice in the right direction and at the right atmosphere and create actual change. Because auditory science doesn't apply here anyways. Thank you.